Welcome to Anglo-Romani with Pricey. I'm Pricey and this is the series where I take a look at the Anglo-Romani paralanguage / dialect and use it as a kind of jumping off point for looking at the history of the sort of migration and culture of Romani people more generally. In this particular episode I am looking at clothing, and that's being kind of loose with the term because of one of the things that I'm looking at, but let's just get into it. Okay, so straight away I have to open this video with the word for clothes itself, which is Izers, and this is really unfortunate because this was hands down one of the most difficult and awkward words to research that I've ever done on this series. In fact, this word really illustrates just how much this field of research needs to develop, because there was only one place where I could really source anything relating to the word that my family used for clothes, which is Izers, and that was Yaron Matras and his work with the Romany project at the University of Manchester. Looking into Yaron Matras's books, I was able to find that he has linked this to various variations across Britain and Sweden in particular, but after that there is nothing. There is literally no leads to pick up. This leaves me in a very awkward position because it's such a crucial word for this particular video. I feel like I have to give something, and the best I can do is speculation on my own back, not even other people's speculation. So take this all with a huge grain of salt. With that being said, I have traced this one back to two possible, real emphasis on possible, potential words that this could be linked to. One which is fairly recent but slightly more likely, and another one which is much more ancient but I still think may have some credence just because of how many other languages it has impacted. So the older and, in my opinion, less likely of these two potentials is the Arabic / Persian word libas, and there's a heavy emphasis on the bus part, which makes me think that it's very unlikely, but then stranger things have happened when it comes to words morphing as they go through Europe. However, this Persian root word has led to various sort of adoptions and borrowings in many other languages, most of whom are very familiar to any of the videos that I've made so far on this series. You know, sort of Middle Eastern languages, but also sort of North Indian languages and such. And so it has cognates in a lot of the languages that Romani words tend to have cognates in. Then there's the other potential root word for Izers, which is a much later adoption, but one that I think is much more likely, this being the Persian word ojej. And the reason why I think it's more likely is purely down to nothing more than geography, because there are several other terms for clothes found in Anglo-Romani, some of which come from like other places in the continent, in particular like the south and east of Europe. Others have come through from shelter, so that will be an adoption from Irish travellers. But Izers is only found, according to Yaron Matras, in Britain and Sweden. These are both countries which, from the origin point of sort of North India, where Romani people originated, are on the other side of Poland. So just based on geography alone, this is the one I'm more inclined to believe is the origin point of the word Izers. But if you are able to tell me something that I haven't been able to find myself, please do, because I am going nuts trying to find the origin of Izers. As with all of the words in today's video, Gard was another word that was very difficult to find any concrete information on, but what I have found seems to fit, but I'm not 100% sure about it because I've not been able to cross-reference it on the way back like I usually am. So Gard, meaning shirt, comes from the more commonly used word Gad, which seems to have stayed the same across most Anglo-Romani families and across the entirety of Europe, it would seem. Let me know if I'm incorrect about that one on the European side of things. It just seems to only be my family that have added this kind of R sound in there to make it God. And despite it being such a commonly used term across Romani families, I was only able to find one source that was able to put me in the right direction. Or at least I think it's the right direction. That being the French Wikipedia page on the Romani language. And this particular webpage links it to either the Sanskrit Gatra or the Prakrit Gata, both meaning the body or potentially like the torso. So at some point that's come to mean a thing that you wear on the top half of your body, but because I've not been able to find any sort of like place between point A and point B, I've not been able to like concretely say that this is actually correct. It seems to be correct, and indeed gutta is used in the continent, and gutta seems to be a word that has some cognates from other Indian languages. Possibly the easiest word to research in today's video, but one that took me down a very surprising rabbit hole nonetheless. Looking into the word Chokka, I was not able to find an etymology as much as I was able to find a piece of Georgian fashion, a woolen coat with a high neckline. And I'm not going to lie, if I found a vegan version of this coat, I would totally be getting one. But as for the word itself, it seems to be traced to Ottoman Turkish word Chokka, which means a thick piece of cloth. And this word ends up having descendants in a variety of Southern and Eastern Slavic words, including Russian, including Slovenian, including Croatian, just across the sort of whole southeast half of Europe, as well as the Middle East, and for some reason Hindi. And then in turn, this Ottoman word has its roots in a Persian word that has the same spelling as its Georgian and Russian counterparts, which is the same spelling that Yaron Matras was able to trace the Anglo-Romani word Chokka back to. So it's very likely that this is all linked. Being real, most of the words in today's video aren't ones that I really grew up with. They're ones that my dad grew up with and that he was able to tell me. However, this word, Olivas, was one I definitely recognised to mean trousers. And just like with the word Chokka, this one also took me to the Caucasus region, sort of that area around sort of Georgia, South Russia, North Turkey. This time with the Ossetian or the Ossetian language. I never know which way is correct. Apparently they both are. And from this starting point in Ossetian, this word has morphed considerably, going from halav to holov to holova to, as my family have called it at some point, one of my ancestors at least, has dropped the H, put an S on the end to fit with maybe the English word trousers, which is also pluralized, and has become Olivas. So we've gone from halav to Olivas in, I presume, less than 500 years. And speaking of considerable morphology, I am ending this video today on a word that sounds nothing like its origin point, and actually isn't even technically close. I'm referring to one of these, a ring, or as they're known in my family, a Vanister. At least I think it's Vanister. It could be Valister. I might be mishearing my dad, or he might be saying it wrong. Somewhere along the line it has changed considerably. Every other form of this word has an N sound, but I'm pretty sure I always hear it as Valister, but I'm gonna hedge my bets now. It might be Vanister, or at least at some point in my lineage it was Vanister. And with regards to words stemming from the continental Romany vangusti, meaning ring, there are no less than 17 other variants documented by Yaron Matras in Anglo-Romani families alone. That's not to include the 3 or 4 other variants found coming from like shelter, for example. And regardless of whether your family happens to use Vongista or Wangustri or Vokishna, or in my case Vanister, all of these words can be traced back to Vangustri, and from there can be traced back further to the Persian word Angushtar. And this word seems to mean like something that is worn on the finger. It's kind of like sort of an amalgamation of 2 words being put together. And with that, those are all of the words that I was able to find up till now, referring to things that you wear on your body, or as I'm just going to call it in this video, clothing. Please let me know if there are other words that maybe you have. Like, I'm sure there was a word for shoes that I remember existing, but like when I was in a conversation with my dad recently, neither of us could remember it. But yeah, like maybe you know like some words for shoes, for hats, for gloves, things like that. Please do let me know in the comments. I'd be very interested to sort of know about those, and maybe some point down the line I will do a deep dive into where those words originated from. If this is your first time here, then please do go check out the rest of the Anglo-Romani series that I've done, as well as the rest of the channel for sort of music discussion and retro gaming, if that takes your fancy. And until next time, have a good one.